We've got David Rothkopf, who's written a column that's appropriate to the Peter Alexander piece. And, of course, David, you're welcome to also talk about where you think Democrats need to go moving forward. But first, let's start with your piece where you talked about the nomination of Gaetz ending was actually, well, perhaps some guardrails being put up in the second term. What do you say?
Well, I think the important thing now is that we sort of move away from our free-floating nightmare of what Donald Trump might be and start dealing with the reality of Donald Trump, where it is sometimes concerning and it's sometimes dangerous. And that requires focus. It also requires understanding what the constraints are on the ground. We worried Trump would have no guardrails. But in the past few weeks, we've seen, since the election, that his margin of victory was pretty small, that the margin by which the Republicans control the House is smaller than it was, that the margin of Republicans controlling the Senate is just 3 or 4 votes. And so a few people going the other way can change the way things turned out. And that's what we've seen in the Gaetz case. But even before that, we saw Trump's pick to lead the Senate, Rick Scott, be defeated by John Thune. We've seen Mitch McConnell say, nope, we're not going to do recess appointments. You're going to have to go through the Senate. And we've seen some real pressure on his other candidates. And it's by no means a certain thing that Hegseth or Tulsi Gabbard or RFK Jr. are actually going to sail through this. And Trump's not going to get to be the I can do whatever I want president that he wanted to be. And there are other, finally, checks and balances out there. You've talked about them earlier in the show, things like markets and businesses. And some of the plans that Trump has are things that they are not going to react well to, and that's going to put pressure on him. And we've already seen that, too, with his Treasury Secretary pick. He hasn't been able, Howard Lutnick wanted that job. He's over at Commerce now, and he's trying to get somebody that's going to be acceptable to Wall Street, not because he's feeling charitable to Wall Street, but because he knows he needs the support.
Right. We've talked about Bill Clinton this morning already and Robert Rubin. There's that famous part in the Woodward's book about the first couple of years or the first year, actually, of Bill Clinton's presidency, where at some point he wants to expand programs, expand spending. Greenspan comes in and says, no, you can't. The bond markets are going to go crazy. It's going to tank your presidency. And Bill Clinton kind of like yells, wait, are you telling me that my presidency is going to be held hostage to the markets? And Rubin goes, yeah, or Greenspan goes, yeah, that's exactly what I'm telling you. And by the way, he raised taxes, then Republicans came in and cut spending, and we had 4 years of balanced budget. So you're right. Some of those outward pressures actually sometimes end up doing great things for America. But David, I want to follow up on something, and I'd love for everybody here to talk. We're not going to have commercials this entire hour. Sorry, Comcast overlords. No, but I think this is one of the most important questions that Democrats face right now in a second Donald Trump term. And it's not about ideology. We'll always have the debates on ideology. And my position is, yes, I think the Democratic Party should move to the center. That shouldn't surprise anybody. I'm a conservative. But, we'll have those ideological debates. And at the end, it's not so much about ideology as it is connecting with voters. But you said something that I heard, I was going to say Mayor Pete, Secretary Pete Buttigieg say yesterday, that we just played a clip of John Fetterman saying earlier that Mika said on Monday, which is, we can't set our hair on fire every time. If everything is a 5-alarm fire, nothing is a 5-alarm fire. We have to learn from our first 8 years of Donald Trump. So easier said than done. But I loved what you said about, the things we have to balance. Could you go a little deeper on that? And then I'd love to hear from the table.
Yeah, look, I think if we take the threats that Trump poses seriously, then we need to keep a cool head, focus on them, understand what our leverage is, understand who our allies are. You know, if Trump wants to go and deport 10 million people and that causes chaos in the streets, it's also going to cause problems for small businesses. So they may be the allies. It will cause problems for big businesses. They may be the allies. It's going to cause problem in specific Republican-controlled districts. Those people may be the allies. The markets may be the allies. We have to understand that and come up with a strategy for each of the things that we think is a problem. But you know something, just to wrap up, I was listening to your show as I was driving in here to the studio, and your discussion earlier about inequality, growing inequality, cuts right to the core of it. Democrats have an opportunity. They need to listen to Trump and set the narrative by explaining to people who are in the working class and in the middle class that every single day from now on, Trump's doing something to hurt them. And we need to explain it in a way that resonates with them and where we're in a real dialogue, understanding what's most important to them. But the biggest ally Democrats have right now is that Trump's agenda is anti-business, anti-growth, anti-worker, pro-inflation, against all the things they thought they were electing. So let's communicate that. Let's take back the narrative.
All right, the Daily Beast, David Rothkopf, thank you so much.